Greetings, all! Today, we'll be examining the rare normal-type Pokemon Eevee, the evolution Pokemon, and its exceptionally rare water-type evolution Vaporeon, the Bubble Jet Pokemon, its electric-type evolution Jolteon, the Lightning Pokemon, its fire-type evolution Flareon, the Flame Pokemon, its psychic-type evolution Espeon, the Sun Pokemon, its dark-type evolution Umbreon, the Moonlight Pokemon, its grass-type evolution Leafeon, the Verdant Pokemon, its ice-type evolution Glaceon, the fresh snow Pokemon, and its fairy-type evolution Sylveon, the intertwining Pokemon. Filled with a greater variety of potential than any other Pokemon known, the members of the Eevee family and Eevee itself especially are unique and astounding creatures that can more than show the power of evolution and the many ways in which it can manifest.
Eevee, much as with all the evolutions, are primarily quadrupedal mammals, with 3 toes on each foot and features similar to foxes and related beasts, with Eevee standing out for their smaller size and the brown fur that covers the majority of their body, save for the tip of their bulbous bushy tail and a light brown fluffy collar fur that covers the neck area. In addition, they have long pointed ears with dark brown interiors, a small black nose, a cute mouth, and dark brown eyes. They are also known to have access to a Gigantamax form, in which they grow immensely in size, and the fluffy collar of hair that surrounds the neck increases drastically in size to cover most of their torso. Vaporeon have rubbery, hairless blue skin, with a long dark ridge of spiny flesh running down the length of their tail, which is split into a pair of tail fins, up along their back into the neck and head, where they have a white frilly collar webbing around their neck, and a large dark blue central crest with 2 beige fin-like structures that function as their ears. Jolteon have thick yellow fur covering most of their body, save for a collar of white hair around their neck, with spiked electrified sections of fur along their back, neck, ears, and the back of their head, their ears also having a black interior to them. Flareon have bright orange fur covering most of their form, save for their large yellowish-brown fluffy head crest, the collar fur around their neck, and their large bushy tail, their ears furthering having a black interior, and the eyes being a blackish-blue color. Espeon have thin purple fur that covers the entirety of their body, including their thin tail and its split ends, with their ears being quite large and broad, as well as having a pair of feeler-like fur flaps on their face, white eyes with purple sclera, and a small rounded red gem on their forehead. Umbreon have thin black fur covering the entirety of their body, with a series of gold rings that cover parts of their thighs, bulbous tail, bulbous ears, as well as having one on their forehead, with a small nose and mouth, and black eyes with red sclera. Leafeon have a thick beige hide that covers most of their form, save for dark brown patches on their feet and the inside of their ears, their eyes being white with orange-brown sclera, and their tail, ears, forehead, and parts of legs and neck having a series of green sharp-edged leaves growing from them organically. Glaceon have bodies covered in light blue fur, with dark teal-colored patches on their feet, back, and the end of their thin, broad tail with a diamond-edged motif, as well as ears with teal-colored interiors, a pair of tassel-like fur growths with blue and teal-colored ends, a blue tripart crest of hair on their forehead, a blue nose, and white eyes with teal sclera. Lastly, Sylveon have whitish fur covering most of their body, with the exception of pink fur at their feet and ankles, their tail, and the top of their forehead and ears, with blue interiors to the ears, white eyes with light blue sclera, a pair of white and pink bows on the neck and the left ear, and a quartet of white feelers along their neck and head, with pink and blue shaded ends on the pair closer to their head that resemble ribbons in their physical form.
Eevee and its evolutions are perhaps the most drastic living examples of what centuries of inbreeding can do to an organism's genome.
As far as anyone can tell, Eevee have always been rare. Due to their obvious lack of strength and durability, Eevee are easy prey for most organisms and are thus nearly extinct in the wild. However, humans apparently pitied them many centuries ago and began breeding them indoors. Because of their extreme rarity though, inbreeding was a highly common practice. In the case of Eevee, the practice never really stopped, at least not until modern times, because the species never showed any ill effects from the process, which in and of itself was highly unusual. General estimates state that massive inbreeding of the species was regularly practiced for at least 1500 years by humans, but exact estimates are relatively sketchy due to lack of serious documentation and the skewed gender ratio of 1 to 8 in favor of males. What humans didn't realize until recently was that, while Eevee may not have shown any clear side effects from the inbreeding process on the outside, the process was wreaking havoc on their DNA. As a result, the genetic code became highly unstable and highly prone to spontaneous mutation, from minor alterations like starting to resemble their owners after some time, to the point of instigating extreme biological change under specific environmental circumstances. In modern times, this has become the species' defining characteristic, and the sole reason for breeding them is Eevee have few defining traits outside the evolutionary diversity. Various factors can contribute to the genetic state and can cause sudden and sometimes violent mutations, including certain evolutionary stones, their happiness, whether it's day or night, air temperature, and even odors. As such, trainers have to be extraordinarily careful about where they take the Eevee, especially if they want a specific evolution. While there are currently 8 verified evolutions known, it is more than possible that different mutations have yet to be discovered. Although analyses of the genetic code have been conducted for several decades now, there is still relatively little understood about these creatures.
At the very least, though, they can show some usefulness in their possible abilities, as these creatures can be rather skittish and are skilled in making the most of their normal type offenses, subsequently possessing runaway and adaptability as base abilities, while individuals that are keenly aware of their surroundings and can get a feel for the types of powerful attacks an opponent might have, can also have anticipation as a hidden ability.
That being said, though, it is known for certain that Eevee are among the easiest and safest Pokemon for young trainers and even toddlers to be around, as a lack of serious offensive and defensive abilities leaves them little to use for power other than their own bodies. While they do learn a few interesting moves like Last Resort and Trump Card, Eevee today are little more than glorified pets in comparison to more advanced Pokemon, and can be difficult to train for combat, though they do have access to their own unique Z move, Extreme Evo Boost, which can help them out in battle. Nonetheless, trainers just starting out on their adventure, or those who are otherwise extremely rich, oftentimes find Eevee to be a great species to ease into if Pokemon are an otherwise unfamiliar thing in a person's life. In combination with the radically diverse array of Pokemon they can possibly evolve into, this makes the species a Swiss Army knife of potential that just about any trainer can enjoy, even if they might be somewhat weak on their own. This is helped out even more by the existence of a special breed of Eevee, whose members are not only a lighter shade of brown compared to normal Eevee, and have females that possess heart-patterned markings on their tail, but more importantly, have the capacity to learn a number of unique attacks linked to their evolutions that grant them considerable versatility in battle, including the Bouncy Bubble, Buzzy Buzz, Sizzly Slide, Glitzy Glow, Batty Bad, Sappy Seed, Frenzy Frost, Sparkly Swirl, and VV Volley attacks. Moreover, they have stronger base stats than their normal counterparts, with a slightly increased base HP stat and marginally increased base stats across the rest of the board. While these particular Eevee prefer not to evolve, this enhanced power and versatile skill set helps to set them apart and make them far more viable threats than they might be otherwise.
Lastly, in regards to Eevee, it is noted that Eevee is one of only a limited number of species capable of undergoing the process of Gigantamaxing, with specific members of the species taking on a unique form when they are Dynamaxed in battle.
In this state, these creatures grow immensely in size, and their fur becomes much fluffier, especially the hair that forms the neck collar. While in this form, Eevee become even more innocent and friendlier than normal, and desire only to play with others, but because of their giant form, this will often lead to their opponents being crushed under their immense size, or becoming trapped within the fluffier neck collar, captivating their mind to the point of not wanting to leave the comfortable fur they are enveloped in. While this might only be a temporary state for them, the immense power that flows through them while in this state allows Eevee to utilize a unique G-Max move known as G-Max Cuddle, which takes the standard max strike attack and infuses it with love and affection, infatuating anything that gets struck by it, and in turn, allowing these monsters as a whole to use their Dynamax power to the fullest to cripple anything that would dare to face them in combat.
With Vaporeon, the radiant energy of a water stone mutates Eevee and causes them to grow fins and gills, thus setting them up for an aquatic lifestyle, though they are still able to actually breathe on land, and they are granted access to the water gun attack immediately after evolving.
While Vaporeon are able to live in both fresh and salt water, they usually prefer dwelling in clean, clear waters near beautiful shorelines. The exact reason, however, is still a mystery. Since their short legs are not very good for swimming, Vaporeon rely on their large gills for locomotion in water. Furthermore, the movement produced by the small fin that runs down their back helps stabilize their bodies while swimming, in addition to decreasing the amount of surface water their movements disturb, making it easier for them to escape potential predators. The fin on their back has one other strange ability. It can actually predict when rain will fall by detecting the amount of moisture in the air. If you see the fin on a Vaporeon's back vibrate while above water, it's a sure sign that rain will fall in the area within the next few hours. The exact mechanism behind this appears to be an advanced neuron sensor designed to alert Vaporeon to the possibility of precipitation as a method of survival, since Vaporeon need to keep their bodies constantly hydrated in order to stay healthy and maintain their powers. The reasoning behind this unique sensor, ironically enough, lies in the fact that Vaporeon reacts so strongly to mutation that their cells lose most of their cell walls and become little more than gelatinous sacs almost completely consisting of water molecules. As a result, Vaporeon have free control over water and can even liquefy their entire bodies for brief periods of time, generally ranging from a few seconds to an hour at most, and employ this action as both a primary tactic for hunting the fish that comprise the majority of their diet, and for escaping any enemies that invade their territory. Besides acting as an impressive tactical maneuver, this grants Vaporeon the ability to utilize moves like Acid Armor that are otherwise known by very few water-type Pokemon, thus giving them some unique utility to their forms.
This is directly complemented by their abilities, as well the capacity to liquefy their entire forms on a whim also means they can absorb and incorporate water into the systems readily, granting them access to water absorb as a base ability. They can also sometimes use this power to reform damaged cells to cure status afflictions, thus having hydration as a hidden ability.
As far as the stats are concerned, these creatures don't have much to offer in the way of physical attributes and mobility, but they are able to deal with special power decently well and have an incredible surplus of stamina to work with, their base HP, special attack, and special defense stats being above average for a fully evolved water-type Pokemon, helping them to tank and outlast many fighters as long as they can keep their energy reserves up.
With Jolteon, the radiant energy of a thunderstorm mutates Eevee and grants them an extremely unique ability, the power to harness their own cells' electric charges, which in turn enables them to learn the Thundershock attack immediately after evolving.
All cells generate their own weak electrical field as a result of biochemical processes, so this alone is not an amazing feat. Jolteon make it unique, however, by being able to directly harness their own electrical field and convert it into a form of DC current. Normally, such electricity would still be too weak to even launch a single low-voltage bolt, especially considering that the electricity-generating organ attached to their lungs, which produces a crackling noise when they exhale, is rather weak and primitive, but that's where the beast's fine needle-like fur comes in. The fur of Jolteon is uniquely designed to absorb and hold great quantities of negative ions from the atmosphere, and turn infusing it with huge volumes of static electricity. When Jolteon draw from and concentrate this static electricity in their fur with the bioelectrical energy from the cells in their electrical organ, the result is a huge potential difference between their bodies and the surrounding air that allows them to fire massive 10,000 volt thunderbolts capable of electrocuting and frying small animals and incapacitating humans. Thankfully though, the rate at which Jolteon produce and release their charge is fairly low. As such, the high voltage nature makes them perfect for maximizing damage and pain without dealing lethal damage, and thus excellent devices for both offensive and defensive fighting. Unfortunately, Jolteon tend to unconsciously store considerable amounts of electricity anytime the mood changes for the worse and are already high-strung to begin with, so growing close to them can be difficult, and anyone that gets near one that's in a bad mood could potentially be on the receiving end of a discharge or thunder attack very shortly. They further have a penchant for attracting lightning during storms, and while they are usually the ones on the receiving end of the bolt, it has been observed that it can miss and strike the ground near them, electrifying it and posing a serious risk to any other life form that is near them at the time. In addition, Jolteon are unique in that they can harness their own fur as a potent weapon of physical trauma. Although Jolteon fur is normally quite soft to the touch, the actual matter fur covering their bodies is made out of numerous bunches of thin needle-like hairs that grow as a group of hairs attached to a single root. When charged with electricity in preparation for electrical discharge of some sort, these hairs stand up straight and stiffen into razor-sharp blades capable of easily piercing soft flesh. To the naked eye, this merely makes Jolteon appear more menacing. In reality though, Jolteon have perfected a method for utilizing their fur as a direct projectile weapon. When their fur becomes overly charged, it fizzles and crackles very loudly. If charged too much, the individual hairs will literally burst apart and fire outwards as projectiles. By specifically absorbing and charging portions of their fur, Jolteon can fire off large volleys of electrically charged hair at will. In essence, this is a unique variation of the pin missile attack, an attack that only Jolteon and Togedemaru out of all electric-type Pokemon are actually able to normally learn. And it's a great way for Jolteon to weaken their opponents before unleashing a devastating electrical attack to finish them off.
As one might imagine, the capacity to readily harness electrical energy from their bodies and surroundings grants these beasts access to Volt Absorb as their only base ability, but some can also harness the power and use it to stimulate their muscles to accelerate their movements if they're under the duress of a status condition, in turn having access to Quick Feet as a hidden ability.
As far as the stats go, Jolteon don't have a ton of stamina to them and lack much in the way of physical power, but they make up for this with notable special power and exceptional agility, their base special attack, special defense, and speed stats being above average for fully evolved electric-type Pokemon, rendering them agile threats worth looking out for in a fight.
With Flareon, the radiant energy of a Firestone mutates Eevee and grants them the ability to produce fire, along with access to the Ember attack immediately after evolving.
However, they do not possess any true combustion organs. Instead, Flareon store air in a pressurized organic flame sac that superheats inhaled air when they are preparing to use a fire-type attack. In doing so, the temperature of the inhaled air can go beyond 3000 degrees Fahrenheit and thus raise their internal body temperature from an average of 1300 to 1500 degrees Fahrenheit to a maximum of 1700 degrees Fahrenheit if they are agitated. When the superheated air leaves their body, it instantly reacts with oxygen and other volatiles in the atmosphere and generates a brilliant flame. They oftentimes use this flame in order to cook berries and prey items until they're well done to make them easier to digest. In order to regulate their body temperature, Flareon fluff out the collar fur on their necks, as the fur acts as a conductor of heat energy and thus allows Flareon to maintain relatively comfortable body temperatures when attacking. Interestingly enough though, Flareon only possess subpar special abilities and their powerful special attacks are more for show than anything else. Even so, these beasts can become enraged fairly easily under the right circumstances, and will gladly make the opposition as uncomfortable as possible before striking hard with physical attacks. While Flareon do not possess abilities that are extensive as their evolutionary contemporaries, they do have one unique distinction. They may be the closest living things to a natural Eevee evolution known. Genetically, Flareon are extraordinarily similar to Eevee and possess a very similar anatomical arrangement. In addition, they possess the highest base attack stat out of all Eevee evolutions, but they primarily learn special attacks. This brings into question the possibility of Eevee once possessing a natural evolution, a subject that is usually not spoken of because of its controversial nature. For here, though, a quick summarization will be provided. Scientists have long argued about whether or not Eevee once had the capacity to evolve naturally, but were stripped of the power due to increasing genetic instability. Unfortunately, even today, the sides are evenly divided. There exists no evidence of such a life form existing, but due to their extreme rarity in the wild, it is possible that a natural evolved form was simply never documented or observed by humans directly. If this is true, then Flareon may be the closest living remnant of this extinct evolution, as the body structure, stat distribution, and genetic code best match the qualities of a natural Eevee evolution candidate. If more research proves that an original evolution did once exist, Flareon may be the key to genetically reawakening it within Eevee, most likely through modified gene therapy or direct genetic manipulation.
Regardless, the capacity these beasts have to use their form to absorb extreme heat and energize their bodies with it can grant them access to Flash Fire as their only base ability, while those that are much more forceful and rambunctious when they are afflicted with a debilitating status condition can also have access to Guts as a hidden ability.
As far as the stats are concerned, Flareon are noted for having a great deal of physical strength to them, and can use their fur to help reduce damage from special blows rather effectively, their base attack and special defense stats being above average for a fully evolved Fire-type Pokémon, further possessing the highest base special defense stat out of all non-legendary Fire-type Pokémon, and making them a surprising fire brand that can more than pull their weight in a fight.
With Espeon, Eevee that possess incredibly strong bonds with their trainers are mutated by the warmth of the sun's rays, transforming them into agile creatures capable of utilizing strong psychic powers where none once existed for defense, and grant them access to the Confusion attack immediately after evolving. A similar effect is generated when in the presence of a sun shard, but due to the unbelievable rarity of these items, the use of real sunlight is generally preferred.
Both Espeon and Umbreon are considered to be the strangest of Eevee evolutions, along with Sylveon, because of their unique circumstances. Evolution via friendship has always been a relatively mysterious process, but these two creatures take it one step further with their bizarre day-night separation. In the case of Espeon, the radiation from the sun's rays causes their brains to mutate extensively, granting them psychic powers and enhanced perceptual abilities. As far as anyone can tell, this mutation is born solely from an Eevee's intense desire to protect its trainer, so Espeon are extremely loyal to any and all trainers that they consider worthy of their power. These psychic powers are normally fairly weak in comparison to other psychic-type Pokémon on their own, but by focusing the energies of the red gems on their foreheads while bathed in sunlight, Espeon can utilize impressively damaging attacks despite this apparent handicap. It is noted though that their powers are weakened at night, and they can only use their powers for an intermediate length of time before becoming exhausted, causing the orb to grow dull and dark in the process until they can revitalize their powers. Along with their potent psychic abilities and the capacity to learn unique moves like Morning Sun and Power Swap, Espeon also possess an extremely fine coat of hair, often described as looking and feeling like velvet. Besides being soft, each of their hairs is fully articulated and capable of transmitting information on its movement at any given moment. In short, Espeon can use their hair to detect even the slightest changes in the motion of surrounding air currents. In this manner, Espeon are able to predict changes in weather patterns far more accurately than any existing form of technology. Moreover, since the ability is usually passive, Espeon exert almost no effort in using this power and often end up using it even if they don't originally intend to. Furthermore, Espeon can use this power to even predict the movements of opponents based on their breathing patterns and muscle movements, but it is duly noted that they must raise their tail, which contains the densest patches of fur, in order to get a perfectly clear reading, the tip twitching as they work to predict their opponent's next move. Trainers fighting against Espeon should take this fact into consideration and plan accordingly with either extremely agile movements or a bit of fire to even the odds on the battlefield.
These entities are further able to link their minds with others in order to pass thoughts and even status conditions and their effects on a brain activity onto others as part of the synchronized ability, their only base ability, though individuals with exceptionally strong psychic powers can instead use their might to reflect certain moves and attributes onto others and thus have magic bounce as a hidden ability.
As far as the stats are concerned, these creatures don't have a lot to offer in the way of physical attributes or stamina, but they can at least hit fairly hard with their special attacks and are quite agile, the base special attack and space stats being above average for a fully evolved psychic-type Pokémon, and thus can prove to be a noble threat to face without protection.
With Umbreon, Eevee that possess incredibly strong bonds with their trainers are mutated by the elegant glow of moonlight, transforming them into shadowy beasts that utilize the moon as a direct source of power and grant them access to the Snarl attack immediately after evolving. A similar effect is generated when in the presence of a moon shard, but due to the unbelievable rarity of these items, the use of real moonlight is generally preferred.
Compared to Espeon in the case of Umbreon, a minor alteration of the sun's rays, as moonlight is simply the result of the sun's rays reflecting off the moon's surface, causes a major genetic alteration, reconfiguring their cellular structure in such a way as to make their power completely dependent upon the time of day. Umbreon are far more hostile and aggressive than Espeon, but they still maintain a high degree of loyalty towards their trainers and other people. As such, they are generally docile in public, though wild ones are considered to be extremely dangerous. Moreover, they are a bit more difficult to train than Espeon, as the range of attacks is fairly limited outside of a few weak physical strikes, a last resort attack, and a snarl attack. Even so, the ability to harness unique moves such as Moonlight and Guard Swap can make them troublesome under the right circumstances. Umbreon prefer to stay hidden from sight during the night, silently lurking around within the darkness as they search for prey. These nocturnal beasts will only strike when they have a clear view of the prey in front of them, which is quite easy as the large eyes grant them superb night vision, going straight for the throat in order to finish them off quickly before eating them. For reasons that are still not understood, the faint rings patterned on their fur and skin glow faintly but ominously in the darkness and only increase in intensity when they are attacking prey and or opponents, are excited, or are exposed to direct moonlight. This striking appearance tends to have the effect of scaring anyone that suddenly gazes upon them, especially since Umbreon will never move until the onlooker decides to move first. What seems strikingly odd, however, is the bizarre power the Umbreon gain from exposure to direct moonlight. While the effects vary widely, such light generally increases their attack strength, physical durability, and movement speeds by as much as tenfold, in turn heightening the threat they pose to astonishing levels. During the day though, Umbreon are relatively limited in terms of sheer power, and instead must rely on their superb defenses alone as protection. If agitated, Umbreon can and will spray a poisonous sweat from glands all over their body at the eyes of their opponent to distract them. While the poison itself is nowhere near lethal, it can still serve as useful defensive purpose, as it is extremely painful and irritating when exposed to the sensitive tissue in most eyes.
These entities are further able to link their mental essence with others in order to pass thoughts and even status conditions and their effects on their brain activity onto others as part of the synchronized ability, their only base ability. Though individuals with the capacity to readily hone in on and focus their minds in battle in an unwavering fashion can also have access to inner focus as a hidden ability.
As far as the stats are concerned, these creatures don't have a great deal of power to them offensively, but they have a noteworthy amount of stamina to them and have strong heights that can withstand a tremendous amount of punishment, their base HP, defense, and special defense stats being above average for fully evolved Dark-type Pokemon, further possessing the highest base special defense stat out of all non-legendary Dark-type Pokemon, rendering them potent walls to have to face if one is lacking in strong offenses to counter them.
With Leafeon, Eevee that are trained sufficiently enough while in the presence of certain odors or are otherwise exposed to the radiant energy of a leaf stone, mutate tremendously and transform into plant-animal hybrids capable of utilizing photosynthesis to produce energy, additionally gaining access to the leafage and razor leaf attacks immediately after evolving.
Interestingly enough, the odors in question are released by a select few species of moss, all of which are quite rare in any part of the world. These types of moss prefer to cling to rocks above all other materials because the impermeability of the surface towards moisture and water in general. As such, they often form large colonies around fairly large boulders deep in forests where clean rivers flow, where they can get the nutrition they need to survive and live quiet lives away from potential predators. The aroma given off by the moss is a unique chemical within it that seemingly stimulates the cells of Eevee and prepares them for mutation. If enough energy is in turn delivered to the cells, Eevee will spontaneously mutate on the spot. Upon evolving, Leafeon grow chloroplasts within their cells, which gives them the ability to utilize photosynthesis for energy. Much as with some normal plants, this means that Leafeon are constantly enveloped within a pocket of pure oxygen, as it is the primary byproduct of the process. In some cases, Leafeon may resort to eating freshly fallen leaves in order to garner some energy, but this will only be done if the air is too polluted to breathe in. This is also an action that is committed by older specimens more so than younger ones, as they require more energy to run basic life-sustaining processes. As such, while younger Leafeon smell like freshly cut grass, older specimens tend to give off an aroma closer to that of the freshly fallen leaves they more regularly dine upon. Both are popular for perfume in places like the Galar region, though. Since they do not have to hunt regularly in order to sustain themselves, Leafeon spend most of the time sleeping in places where the sun shines brightly. In turn, this means they are quite passive by nature and prefer to not fight at all. If provoked considerably, or if their friends and allies are put in danger, however, Leafeon will savagely fight back with their razor-sharp tails, which have essentially become leaves through mutation, and will viciously use attacks like Razor Leaf and Leaf Blade to cut down all that dare to oppose them, striking with enough force to cut large trees in half like they were wielding high-quality swords. This is further enhanced by their ability to learn the sword stance technique and a fairly armored hide that can hold up surprisingly well against physical attacks. The only real problem the Leafeon have is an inability to defend themselves very well against special attacks, as they gain no advancements in special defense upon evolving from Eevee.
Perhaps not surprisingly, these creatures are able to use their partial plant bodies to keep their cells in a fit state and free of debilitation when they are overcharged with solar energy, giving them access to Leaf Guard as their only base ability, while those that instead use sunlight to accelerate their bodily movements can instead have Chlorophyll as a hidden ability.
As far as the stats are concerned, these creatures are relatively quick-footed in nature, and are not only able to use their bodies as potent weapons in close quarters, but also can use their thick cell walls and hide to defend against physical attacks, their base attack, defense, and speed stats being above average for fully evolved grass-type Pokémon, and thus can take a decent beating physically and deliver it right back with gusto.
With Glaceon, Eevee that are trained sufficiently enough while in the presence of extremely low temperatures, or are exposed to the radiant energy of an ice stone, mutate and are empowered with the ability to utilize Cold as a direct weapon, additionally getting access to the Icy Wind attack immediately after evolving.
This evolution is particularly unique because there are very few other Pokémon known to be created indirectly or through direct evolution as a response to cold temperatures. As such, this demonstrates just how unstable the genetics of Eevee truly are. However, the temperatures needed to trigger this evolution are far colder than what nature is normally capable of producing on land. There are only a few select places on the planet where temperatures drop low enough to produce extremely dense layers of ice, which in turn seem to give the proper aura of cold needed to trigger this mutation. These varieties of ice tend to form around substances that are already designed to absorb large quantities of heat without changing temperature much, such as meteorites. Such rocks are the only reliable sources of this true cold currently known, so trainers that wish to own a Glaceon will have to go far out into the coldest parts of the world to find them, or at least use an ice stone to make them mutate immediately. While Glaceon might not have much in the way of physical strength, they are still extremely dangerous to be around in any weather. By lowering their body temperatures at will to less than negative 75 degrees Fahrenheit, Glaceon are able to harden the fine hairs comprising their fur, transforming them into icy needles that both weather physical blows like a suit of armor and can be used as a deadly weapon in a full-body tackle. If they lower the temperature sufficiently, the moisture in the air around them will also begin to freeze, and turn enveloping the area surrounding them in a flurry of diamond dust ice pellets. Because of its abrasive nature, this type of snow is a major threat to fleshy creatures and even armored opponents under the right circumstances, especially if incorporated into a blizzard attack, and those that are captivated by its appearance often find themselves frozen solid before they can properly react, even though it equally makes them very popular at ski resorts. In addition, Glaceon are able to use interesting defensive moves such as Barrier and Mirror Coat thanks to this diamond dust snow, as it can instantly be frozen into a solid sheet of ice at any given moment in time, with different properties depending upon the ambient air temperature. Moreover, this shielding tends to hold up surprisingly well against physical assaults, but it is still highly susceptible to fire, and is thus a vital weakness that fire-type specialists can take advantage of for at least a little while before their Pokémon become frozen solid.
Similar to Leafeon, evolution into the state has allowed Glaceon to use the new bodies to help keep their frames protected from harm, and in their case, it comes from their fur blending in with the white and blue of snow and hail, and turning granting them access to Snow Cloak as their only base ability. While those that instead can use snow and ice to rehydrate themselves and energize their forms have access to Ice Body as a hidden ability.
As far as the stats are concerned, these creatures might not be that fast or have a ton of stamina or physical strength, but their bodies are well armored against attack thanks to the icy frames and can hit extremely hard with their special attacks. The base defense, special attack, and special defense stats being above average for fully evolved Ice-type Pokémon, and further possess the highest base special attack stat out of all non-legendary Ice-type Pokémon, making them a chilly threat that can more than pull the weight in battle.
Sylveon have proven to be perhaps the greatest mystery of the Eevee family, as the evolutionary pathway is both bizarre and highly specific enough to say that it is, in all likelihood, a species whose origin age is effectively indeterminable.
Eevee are prone to randomly mutating under a number of factors, but one factor that has rarely been taken into account is affection, a trait distinct from, but can be worked in as equivalent to, happiness, in that it can only form in the presence of a single trainer and is severed the moment that Pokémon is traded to someone else. While this trait itself does nothing on its own, it has become a prevailing factor in recent time thanks to the advent of the Pokémon Amiibo program in the Kalos and Hoenn regions, and seems to react in a bizarre manner when combined with the presence of Fairy Force energy. In essence, if an Eevee is trained long enough for it to acquire a moderate level of affection or high friendship with its trainer, and happens to know at least one Fairy-type move, the next time its experience level increases, it will trigger a mutation that enables them to evolve into Sylveon, and in turn grants them access to the disarming voice attack immediately after evolving. Sylveon by nature are extremely affectionate, and tend to show that affection on a regular basis with their trainers, even if it might not seem appropriate, grabbing a hold of their trainer's arms with their ribbon-like feelers, with which they can actually sense their trainer's feelings through contact, and walking beside them almost like a dog on a leash. These gentle creatures do not like to fight much, and tend to stay away from conflict if at all possible, only using their limited selection of attacks to defend themselves if no other options are available. Most of the time, these beasts will attempt to lull others into a state of calm by releasing a soothing aura from their fairy force to the ribbon-like feelers on their body, wrapping them tightly around their target for direct application. Sylveon are so gifted at this practice that, unless they have to win in a battle, they will almost never rely on any other method to win fights and deter others from attacking them. This is not to say that these beasts are incapable of battle though, as they have a surprising amount of stamina compared to the other evolutions of Eevee, and are capable of both taking and receiving special damage very effectively in battle, eventually even learning the devastating Moonblast attack late in life. Moreover, despite their peaceful natures, they can use this lulling tactic as a tool when hunting prey and surprising opponents, as the calming aura of their feelers release, or at least the swirling motion of them in the air, can distract their targets and give Sylveon a prime opportunity to pounce on them and strike at their biggest weak points. The fact that they are fairy types means they have a lot of odd tricks up their sleeves, and are certainly capable of making the name for themselves in battle, but trainers should be advised that these creatures are not always the easiest to take care of, as the facial expressions tend to be a bit on the muted side, and they do not like to express displeasure that much.
Even so, they can use their forms to make themselves look incredibly cute, to the point of literally charming the hearts of others, having access to cute charm as their only base ability. Though rare individuals that can actually harness their fairy force powers to the absolute maximum can then infuse it into all their normal type attacks, possessing Pixelate as a hidden ability.
As far as the stats are concerned, these creatures not only show a notable proficiency in their overall stamina, but also have incredible special powers in both offense and defense, the latter especially so. The base HP, special attack, and special defense stats being above average for a fully evolved fairy-type Pokemon, more than giving curious trainers plenty of incentive to give raising one of these mysterious beasts a try.
This evolutionary family is by far the most unique and varied out of all Pokemon, and no matter which form you prefer for your evolution, Eevee can be the perfect Swiss Army knife for whatever you need. On their own though, Eevee are incredibly cute and fun to play with, always proven to be incredibly energetic and fun to work with. You may have to be worried about where they are in your local environment if you want a specific evolution out of them, but they can otherwise prove to be a treat to have around for kids and adults of all ages. Vaporeon are unique fish-like creatures that have little trouble blending in with their aquatic surroundings in a lot of cases, using their special powers to hide from even the most tenacious of predators. This can make them a bit hard to spot in the wild too, but their penchant for blasting others with water from afar can at least cue others in onto where their exact location is. Jolteon usually have a wild look to them that is hard to replicate in other creatures, and while they might not have much to work with defensively, they usually don't need it. After all, they can usually blast others with powerful electrical attacks from afar, and if anyone thinks about getting too close to them, their prickly hairs can be readily used as a weapon itself in turn. Flareon might not have a ton of bells and whistles to them as a fire type, but they really don't need them. After all, their intense fiery flames can still scorch others readily, and they are more than a bit adept in plying into others while engulfed in said flames. Espeon are a calm-minded, delightful beasts that can make for both great friends and great companions with the intense psychic powers at their disposal. Even better, they can be a great gauge for when the weather is about to turn, making them a hell of a lot more reliable than simple weather vanes in practice. Similarly, Umbreon are normally rather calm creatures, but you would best not to try and counter them in the night if you can help it. They might not have much more than defense and stamina to work with, but the power of moonlight just makes them stronger and worth confronting with great caution if possible. Leafeon are bizarre beasts that tread the line between animal and plant a little too strongly for my tastes, but that doesn't mean that they're not fun to work with. Their sturdy physical defenses make them a bit harder to crack compared to other grass types, and their access to useful moves like Leaf Blade can give them an edge over the especially offensive movesets of other grass types. Glaceon might end up giving you a bit of the cold shoulder if you're not careful around them in the lands they like to call home. Their icy powers more than make them stand out among ice types, and can grant them a great deal of power with the howling winds of a blizzard behind them. Lastly, Sylveon are honestly some of the most adorable creatures I have ever seen, and the love they can and do show others can make them incredibly endearing in the right circumstances. Actually obtaining one might seem a bit quirky for many, but the unique fairy force power they have in this state can make it all the more fascinating and worth experimenting with if you ever get the chance.
Though they may not always be the easiest of creatures to actually get a hold of, the members of the Eevee family are near magical beasts whose power to mutate into so many different forms testifies to both their genetic instability and incredible potential. You may have to be extremely careful about how you treat them if you want a specific evolution, but the effort can be more than worthwhile with the very powers these beasts bring to the table.
Just do yourself a favor and make sure you keep a careful watch over them when they have yet to evolve. For if you leave one to wander around your neighborhood without a leash, there's no telling just what may come back home to you at the end of the day.
Thank you all for watching this video. It always brings me great joy to see others enjoying the work I do to try and make the world of Pokemon and the fascinating creatures that lay inside of it feel as real as they possibly can. If you really enjoy my work, please feel free to leave a comment and subscribe, as I always do my best to respond to any and all comments that are left on my videos. In addition, if you wish to learn more about my work and help support it, you can find links to my Patreon page, as well as email and other contact information to my work on DeviantArt in the video description down below. Furthermore, you can find a link to my Discord server there as well if you'd like to get a first glimpse at what videos are coming up next and converse with other fans of the world of Pokemon. Thank you for taking the time to watch this, and have a wonderful rest of your day.